Have you ever woken up and just felt behind?
Hmm.
And I don't mean, you slept through your alarm. I mean a spiritual heaviness.
Hmm.
That deep feeling that from the moment your eyes open, you're already in debt.
The feeling that you need to justify your own existence before you've even had a sip of coffee?
Exactly. It's like you
Yeah.
have to prove your worth, earn your keep, and sort of secure God's approval all over again before you're allowed to go to sleep that night. It's this tension that just suffocates.
It is. And honestly, it's a very specific, very modern kind of exhaustion. But the source material we're looking at today argues this isn't just burnout.
Right. Not just needing a vacation.
No, it's a fundamental spiritual crisis.
So, welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are tackling this idea of spiritual rest. But fair warning to everyone listening, this isn't the kind of rest where you just, take a nap.
Mm-hmm.
This is a radical, almost dangerous idea about doing less to achieve more.
It is so counterintuitive. We're looking at a transcript that focuses heavily on some classic teachings associated with Watchman Nee, and we're diving deep into the book of Ephesians. And the central thesis here is probably going to annoy a lot of high performers.
I am definitely in that category, unfortunately. I'm that learner type. I want the checklist. I want to know, okay, God, what do I need to do to fix this feeling? And this source is basically telling me my question is the problem.
Right. Because the source describes this silent but overwhelming weight we all feel. And it says it's the result of a performance trap. We feel forced to prove something to others, to ourselves, and ultimately to God.
The source calls it a spiritual hamster wheel.
Which is just such a perfect image. You're running, you're sweating, you're exhausting yourself, but you're not actually going anywhere. And the scariest part, you think you're serving God by running so hard.
That's the kicker. We think the exhaustion is like proof of our devotion.
Right.
But the mission of this deep dive is to explore a solution that says, get off the wheel entirely. So let's start with the diagnosis. How do we know if we're even in this performance trap?
Well, the source is pretty visceral about the symptoms. Talks about things like tired eyes, hesitant words, and these sort of desperate prayers. But the one that really got me was the idea of the facade.
That hit me hard too. This idea of maintaining a shiny exterior while you feel like you're just being crushed on the inside.
Exactly. It's that moment you walk into church and someone asks, "How are you?" And you just automatically say, "Blessed," or "Doing great." But inwardly, you feel totally empty. The source asks this really piercing question. Why are you wearing yourself out trying to control what was never under your control?
And it connects all this to a misunderstanding of grace. And I think this is where we need to slow down because grace is a word we toss around so much.
It loses its punch.
It does. But the source uses a really specific analogy to explain why we get it wrong. The prodigal son.
Yes. Luke 15. Now, usually when we talk about that story, who are we focusing on?
Oh, the rebellious one. The younger brother who takes his inheritance and just blows it all. He's the screw-up.
Where he tries to find fulfillment away from the father. But the source makes this fascinating point about the older son, the one who stayed home, the good one.
Okay.
The source argues he was just as lost as the younger brother.
Wait, hang on. That feels like a stretch. The older brother did everything right.
Yeah.
He was responsible. He kept the farm running.
He was. But look at his reaction when the father throws that party. He's furious. He won't even go inside. He says to his father, "I've slaved for you all these years and never disobeyed your orders."
Slaved. Wow, that's a really telling word choice for a son to use.
It reveals his entire heart. He wasn't working out of love. He was working for a wage. He was trying to earn his place. He thought his standing in the family was based on his performance. And the key insight from the source is that both sons totally missed the point. The father's love didn't depend on what they did. It depended on who they were, his children.
That puts a really uncomfortable mirror up because the source is basically saying that many of us, especially the good people, the religious people, we aren't the rebel. We're the older brother.
Precisely. We are striving to earn a rest that has already been given to us. We have this voice in our head, the source calls it the voice of the accuser, that's always whispering, "You didn't pray enough, you snapped at your kids, you're just not good enough."
And our natural reaction to that voice is to run faster, do more, I'll make up for it tomorrow.
Right. And the tragedy, according to this text, is that we are running ourselves into the ground to please a God who is already pleased.
That is, wow, that's hard to accept. It feels too easy. So if I don't have to run, what do I do? This brings us to the core solution the source presents. It calls it the theology of sitting.
And this comes largely from the structure of the book of Ephesians. The source makes a really interesting structural point here. Ephesians is basically split in two. Chapters 1 through 3 are all about what God has done, doctrine.
Okay, theory first.
And then chapters 4 through 6 are the practical part, how we should live. But look at the very first command. It's not go or do or fight. The source highlights Ephesians 2.6. God raised us up with Christ and seated us with him in the heavenly realms.
Seated.
Seated. The argument here is that the Christian life doesn't begin with walking. It begins with sitting.
Not climbing, not marching, not working.
Seated. And the source emphasizes this isn't some metaphor for when we die and go to heaven. It's a spiritual reality for right now. The profound takeaway here is you cannot do anything effective for God until you learn to rest in what God has already done for you. You have to sit before you can walk.
But that feels so backward to how we're wired, especially in our culture. We think, okay, let me put in the hours, let me do the work, and then I'll earn the right to sit down.
Exactly. The world says work to rest. The gospel, according to the source, says rest to work.
Rest to work. Okay, unpack that. Because to a skeptic listening, or even just me with a mortgage, that sounds a lot like passivity. Like, okay, I'll just sit on the couch and wait for God to pay my bills.
It's definitely not that. It's about the basis of your action. The source points to John 19.3, the moment Christ is on the cross and says, "It is finished."
And the source makes a big deal about those three words. It says it wasn't just, a dying man mumbling.
No, it was a cry of victory, a legal declaration. Tetelestai, in Greek, paid in full. And the source asks, why do we insist on carrying burdens he has already carried?
Right.
If Christ completed everything necessary, then our frantic running to prove ourselves isn't just unnecessary. The source says it's actually insulting.
Insulting! That's strong. How is my effort insulting?
Well, think about it like this. If I paid off your mortgage as a gift, I write the check, the bank stamps it paid, and you keep sending check to the bank every month because you don't want to be a freeloader, what are you doing?
I'm acting like your check bounced or wasn't enough.
Exactly. You're effectively saying my payment wasn't real. You're saying it is finished actually meant it's mostly finished, and now I have to do the rest.
Wow. Okay, I see that now. It's the difference between almost and complete. And the source references Colossians 2.7, right? In him you have been made complete.
Complete. Not partially complete pending your annual performance review.
Uh-huh.
This requires a massive mental shift. If you're already seated in the heavenly realms, you aren't trying to get to victory. You're operating from a position of victory.
Okay, I want to get practical here because sitting and operating from victory sounds beautiful as a concept, but life is messy. We have resentment, we have anger, bad habits. The source tells this incredible story about a man who was just drowning in resentment. Can you walk us through that?
This was maybe the most moving part of the whole transcript for me. It describes a man who had been betrayed by his wife, abandoned by his kids. Just a horrific situation. He was just consumed by hatred and bitterness.
And he was trying to fix it. He wasn't just sitting in it.
Oh, he was trying everything. A religious man. Praying, fasting, reading scripture. He told the narrator, I've tried everything to forgive them, but I still hate them. He was just exhausted. He was on that hamster wheel trying to manufacture forgiveness from pure willpower.
And the advice he got, I mean, if I were his counselor, I probably would have given him like a 3-step plan. But the narrator gives him 2 words. Stop trying.
Stop trying. It sounds like the worst advice, doesn't it? It sounds like give up.
It does. It sounds like just let the bitterness win. If I told a friend to stop trying to be a good dad, they'd look at me like I was insane.
But that's where this whole theology of sitting comes in. The narrator told him, you're trying to squeeze forgiveness out of a heart that is empty. You're trying to do God's work with your own fuel. You don't fight to forgive. You surrender to the Christ who has already done it.
So the stop trying wasn't stop wanting to forgive. It was stop trying to be the source of the forgiveness.
Exactly. It's a pivot from, I must do this, to Lord, I can't do this, so you have to do it in me. The source argues that surrender isn't weakness, it's wisdom. It's recognizing that your hands are too small to fix the problem, but God's are big enough.
I think that is where I, and probably a lot of listeners, get stuck. The idea that surrender looks like weakness. We want to be strong. We want the credit for being the bigger person.
But the source quotes 2 Corinthians 12.10, for when I am weak, then I am strong. This is the great paradox of spiritual strength. God isn't impressed by our stiff upper lip. He isn't drawn to our competence. He's drawn to the heart that admits it's needy.
Because if we're full of our own efforts, there's just no room for him.
Precisely. When we acknowledge we're weak, we create a vacuum that God's strength just rushes in to fill.
So going back to that concern about passivity, if we stop trying and we sit, Does that just mean we become vegetables? Do we sit in a chair and wait for a supernatural zap?
Not at all. And this is the crucial distinction between passivity and abiding.
Hmm.
The Source uses that great metaphor of the vine and the branch from John 15. Picture a grapevine.
Okay.
Does the branch have to struggle and strain and turn red in the face trying to squeeze out a single grape?
No, that would be ridiculous. You don't see a tree grunting from effort.
Right. The branch produces fruit simply because it's connected to the vine. It abides. The life flows from the vine into the branch, and the fruit is the natural byproduct. The Source says, when we rest in Christ, when we sit, our walk becomes natural rather than heavy.
So the fruit, things like kindness, patience, forgiveness, it isn't forced labor. It's a byproduct of where you're sitting.
Yes, you aren't trying to be patient. You are resting in the one who is patience, and his patience flows through you. It takes all the pressure off of you to be the hero.
And the Source mentions that this has a ripple effect too. It's not just an internal feeling. Other people notice.
They do. The text describes a peace that emanates. I mean, think about the difference between being around someone who is constantly trying to prove themselves.
Oh, yeah. The name dropper, the one who's always on.
It's exhausting just to watch them,
Totally.
versus someone who is just secure in who they are. When you stop trying to impress everyone, you start reflecting grace. You become a safe person. You're not sucking energy out of the room to feed your ego. You're bringing peace into it.
But living this way it is so countercultural. The Source says the world is always shouting, do more, be more, prove more.
It does. Just open your phone. It's all hustle culture. It's rise and grind. By refusing to play by those rules, you become a kind of counterculture agent. You're saying, I refuse to be defined by my output. My worth is not my productivity.
Which leads to a really different definition of peace. I think we often think peace means everything's going great.
Right, my bank account is full, my health is perfect.
Exactly.
But that isn't peace. That's just comfort.
Yeah.
And comfort is so fragile. One phone call can destroy it. The Source references 2 Corinthians 4, troubled on every side but not distressed.
That sounds like a contradiction. How can you be troubled but not distressed?
Because true peace, according to this, isn't the absence of trouble. It's a peace rooted in a truth that never changes, regardless of the circumstances. It's knowing you are seated even when the world around you is on fire. It's an anchor, not a weather report.
Now here's where it gets really interesting for me, because the Source is so honest. It doesn't promise that once you get this, you just float on a cloud forever. It talks about the old man resurfacing.
I appreciated that honesty too. It acknowledges that the shadow of those old patterns, striving, anxiety, fear, it will try to come back. Especially on hard days. You'll wake up and that old panic will say, hey, you need to worry about this. You're falling behind.
I know that voice well. So what's the protocol for those days when the old man tries to grab the steering wheel?
The Source gives this beautiful analogy from Proverbs. It compares transformation to the light of dawn.
Meaning it's gradual.
Exactly. It gets brighter and brighter. It's a process, not a light switch.
Yeah.
And then it says, God is not in a hurry.
God is not in a hurry. I feel like I need that tattooed on my forehead. I'm always in a hurry.
It's a comforting thought, but practically, the Source suggests that when doubt comes, you have to go back to the cross. You have to make a conscious, daily decision. It quotes Romans 8:1, there is now no condemnation. You have to remind yourself of that, because your feelings will tell you the opposite.
It also mentions listening to the whisper.
Yes. Psalm 46:any, be still and know that I am God. The Source makes an important point here, that the Holy Spirit isn't just a force, but a person who whispers truth to your heart. But, and this is the kicker, we had to slow down to hear him.
If we're on that hamster wheel, the noise of our own panting just drowns out the whisper.
That's a great way to put it. We're often afraid of the silence because if we stop moving, we might realize we're not actually in control.
And that's the terrifying part. Control.
But the Source challenges us.
Yeah.
What control do you really have? We worry about tomorrow, we can't control it. We worry about other people, we can't change them. Surrender is just admitting the truth. He's the captain, we're the passengers.
So let's bring this all together. We started with the suffocating tension, the need to perform, to justify our existence, and we've moved to this idea of sitting in the finished work of Christ.
It's a journey from trying to get to heaven to living from heaven. It's realizing the victory isn't measured by what we do, but by trusting what has already been done for us.
The Source ends with a really provocative image that I want to leave our listeners with. It asks us to imagine the end day.
The judgment seat, standing before God.
And for a lot of people, that's a terrifying image. We picture God with a clipboard, checking off our tasks, shaking his head.
But the source flips that completely. It asks us to realize that on that day, you won't be standing there because of your resume. Not because of your perfectly executed spiritual disciplines. You'll be standing there solely because of what he did.
It changes the final exam question. It's not, did I do enough? It's, did I trust enough?
Exactly. And the source poses this final challenge. Are you going to continue trying to walk in your own strength, stumbling under that weight, or will you choose to sit?
That's the question for today. Not, what are you going to do next? But, are you willing to sit? It's a challenge to drop the heavy luggage we were never meant to carry.
And to find that the rest he offers isn't just a nap. It's the power source for a life that actually bears fruit.
So to everyone listening, if you feel that tension, that suffocation we talked about at the start, maybe the answer isn't to run faster. Maybe the most spiritual thing you can do right now is just stop, take a breath, and sit. Thanks for diving in with us.
Find that rest today.